Hey everyone, welcome back. In our last video, we started to assemble our hydraulic claw and we ended up to this point seen here. Now we're going to go ahead and start assembling the lower and upper arms and some of the syringes. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do now is come on over here to our lower arm and we're going to insert it into the current design. Okay, I'm going to move it into place as we always do. And it's important to make sure that, well, these two slots right here, they should be facing the other way. So we're going to rotate it over. And I'm going to move it, just over here. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go to Assemble, Joint. I'm going to select Revolute, and I'm going to select this circle right here, and I know it corresponds to that circle right there. I'm going to go ahead and select OK. All right, and now let's go ahead and insert the second one, the second lower arm. Insert into current design. Okay, and once again, these two slots right here, we want them facing the other way, so I'm going to rotate it over. I'm going to go ahead and move it over here. Back it out just a little bit. Select OK. Now I'm going to actually go ahead and do a rigid joint between these two arms here. So let's go to Assemble, Joint, and I'm going to go to Motion. Let's do a rigid, and I'm going to select this circle here and that circle there. But listen carefully now. I'm going to offset them a distance of 1.25 inches and select OK. Okay, so now, because we did a rigid joint, it'll move together here, okay, with both of them. All right, looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and start assembling this part of the syringe here with some M3 bolts. So now let's go ahead and insert our M3 by 45 millimeter bolt, and we're going to move it up and over. That's pretty good. Okay, and I'm going to go to Assemble, Joint, and we're going to use a rigid joint, and we're going to also, we know this hole right here, we want the screw to go through that hole, so I click that hole or circle, and I'm going to click on that circle, and we're good. And now I'm going to go ahead and put a nut on the other side here. Click OK. Assemble joint. I'm going to go ahead and use a rigid joint just like last time. And we're going to put it right there on the other side of that bolt. Hit OK. Okay. And looking pretty good. Now let's go ahead and start assembling that syringe. All right, I'm going to come on down and find the syringe plunger here. I'm going to insert it into current design. Okay, and I want the plunger, the rubber portion, to be facing down. Okay. And that's pretty good. Let's kind of straighten it up. Move it over here a little bit. That's probably good. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and assemble this guy with a Revolute joint. And I'm just going to click on that circle. And I'm going to click on now this bolt, because it's going to be attached to this bolt, and I'm going to click right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and select, actually we're going to offset it here so that's right in the middle. We're going to do minus 0.375. I almost forgot about that. So looks pretty good. We're pretty centered. Hit OK. Okay, and now we need to do what's called an as-built joint between these two. So to do that, we first need to align the two components we want to assemble and put them into position. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to ground that guy for now. And then I'm going to move this guy down and kind of get him into place as best I can. down just a little more. That looks pretty good. So now let's go to Assemble, As Built Joint, and we're going to go to Slider, and we're going to click there. And you know what? I don't like the position of them, so I can see how that's kind of sticking out. So I'm going to just kind of get something like that, I think. That looks pretty good. So let's try that again. As Built Joint, select Slider, that guy, and then that guy, and then select the actual tube here where it's going to slide in, and then hit OK. All right, and now if we unground our lower arm, it should go up and down with our plunger here, and it does. Looks good. Okay, so now let's go ahead and start inserting our syringe holders here. So I'm going to first do the lower arm, small piece here. And I'm going to rotate it into position here. Let's flip it over. So it's something like that, and select OK. I'm going to move that down. And I've been assembling, let's do a rigid joint, and I've been assembling with those midpoints, and it's pretty easy. So let's go with that midpoint. We'll go with that midpoint. Looks good. All right, now let's do our other two that are going to go right in these two slots. So now let's go ahead and insert our large syringe holder piece. Okay, and I'm going to move it up and over and just kind of flip it around like so. Hit OK. And then we're going to go ahead and assemble it the same way we did the last time with the rigid joint, and we're going to use that midpoint. That one goes to that one. And now let's go ahead and insert the second one. Okay, looking pretty good. And now let's go ahead and start assembling our upper arm. So I'm going to right click, insert into current design. Move this guy into position, and this one's a little tricky, so let's see if we can. And we want to basically flip this guy around like such. Okay, and that's pretty good. Move it out a little bit. Select OK, and we're going to come up to Assemble Joint, and we want to use a Revolute joint, and we want to basically make that hole match up with this hole, but on the other side. We don't want this one, we want to use that one. And then we're going to come on over here and select that circular hole there and select OK. Okay, and that didn't work too good. Let's move this guy up, and I'm going to ground that so it doesn't move. And now we can kind of move this guy freely here. Looks good. Now let's go ahead and insert our other upper arm video. Insert into current design. Okay, and I'm going to kind of move it into position again. And so it's somewhere kind of right in this area right here. Select OK, and now we're going to use a rigid joint. So I'm going to go to Joint, Motion, Rigid. Okay, and I'm going to now match that hole up with this hole right here. So, and then we're going to offset it here. Let's see here. -1 inch, and let's see if that does the trick. And it doesn't. So if yours looks like that, or if you did it right, that's good. We got to come back up to joints now and make an edit here. So right click on this rigid joint and edit. Okay, and we want it to go the other way. We want this to be 1 inch and select OK. And now we're good. Okay. So if we did it right, this should now basically go up and down. Okay. Looking pretty good. Okay, so now let's go ahead and put a bolt through here. Okay, so we're going to come on up here and insert an M45 bolt. Right click, insert into current design. We're going to go up and over. Okay, and then we're going to just kind of spin it around here. Something like that. Get it better in position. Okay, that's pretty good. And now we're going to go ahead and assemble joint. And we want rigid joint. So click there. And there. And now let's go put a nut there on the other side. Use a rigid joint. Okay, looking good. And now we want to go ahead and put one more bolt through this hole, but we want to use a 35mm bolt, so we're going to right click, insert into current design. And I moved it too far, just like last time. But this is good. Okay, so I got it kind of where I want it here. Assemble joint. Click there. And I want to put it right through this hole, right there. Select OK. And now let's go ahead and put a nut on the other side there. Come on over to your M3 nut, right click, insert into current design. Move them up and rotate them around here. Okay, moved them maybe a little too far. Select OK. Let's go to assemble and add a rigid joint as we've always done with the nuts. Select that circle. And here's our nut, kind of hard to find, but select OK. Okay, so we got our M3 bolts through here and our upper arm is rotating. Now we got to go ahead and add the syringe now, so it's going to be a little tricky. So now let's come on over to our syringe housing and right click, insert into current design. And I'm going to go ahead and place it into position here. Now we're going to do an as-built joint. So we want to place it into position exactly where we want it, just like as if we were physically building this thing. All right, so let's see here. It's pretty well centered, so that's good. Hopefully yours is the same. And I'm going to move it down. Okay. And that's pretty good. You want this piece right here to be between these two pieces, and it's kind of at an angle. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let me maybe make the angle just a hair lower and move it down. That looks perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit OK once you have it in position. Okay, looks good. So now we're going to come up to assemble and we're going to do an as-built joint. So we're going to select rigid joint, we're going to select our syringe housing, and then let's just click on that part and we're going to kind of bind those together with the rigid joint. Now it's locked in place, okay? So it's exactly where we want. Okay, so now let's go ahead and insert our plunger. So we're going to right click, insert into current design. Okay, once again, I'm going to move this guy up, and we're not going to do an as-built joint, but I am going to kind of get it close to where I want it here. So I'm going to rotate it this way. Okay, and get it into some position, something like that. And then we're going to go to assemble, joint, and we're going to do a revolute joint. And we're going to just kind of, let's see here, position. Let's do there. And that circle right there should work. However, we're going to center it here. So we're going to move it out. Something like right there. Let's go have a look and see where it's at in relation to our plunger here. It's hard to see. And that looks pretty good. It's pretty well centered. Okay. You could do the math if you wanted to measure this and then measure the inside gap here. You could do the math and figure it out. I'm going to eyeball it so that it's right around something like that. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. And the last joint we're going to do is an as-built joint between this plunger here and the housing. So I'm going to go ahead and ground this part for the time being so it doesn't move. And now we should be able to move this guy where we want it. Okay. So in fact, I may need to unground it. So let's do that. So I'm going to move this guy up. Oh, it's being stingy. Well, let's do this. Here's what we need to do. This bolt right here needs to be at level with the tube here. So I'm going to eyeball it, and that's about right. Okay, so now I'm going to ground it. Let's try this again. Now I'm going to move this guy up so that it's placed inside the tube like so. Okay, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to do an as-built joint again. Okay, and I'm going to go with a slider, and I'm going to click on the housing and then this part, and then it's going to say, well, how do you want it to slide? And I'm just going to kind of pick on that guy right there. And there we go. And there we go. We have our third syringe, excuse me, assembled. All right. Now here's the thing. I'm going to unground this and watch what happens. This one's still grounded. Good luck getting it to move with these joints. I have not been able to figure it out. If someone wants to leave a comment in the video, if they get it, I would love to figure it out, and I'll update this video. So other than that, we're looking good. Let's move on. All right, and the last thing we want to do for this video is to go ahead and insert our syringe braces here into these 1, 2, 3 slots here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to right click, insert into current design. I'm going to move it up and out. And let's flip them over so they look like they're in the right spot here. Okay. And I'm going to just angle it a little bit more. Looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and assemble it with a joint. Let's go ahead, and it's hard to see, but we want to select that center midpoint, and I'm actually going to go ahead and start with the back one first. Goes right there, and we don't want revolute. Make sure it's rigid. Okay, and then let's go do the other two. Grab that midpoint to that midpoint, and let's see the last one. Oop, not an as-built joint, a regular joint. Make sure it says rigid. Okay, and now we got all three of them in there. All right, that'll do it for video number 2. In the next video, we will put in the fourth and final syringe. Also, we will assemble the claw or gripper portion of our hydraulic arm. All right, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.